Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Mr. Pigeon, and we are going to be going over a lesson today. Going to be reading over a few of the things that I sent you home. Okay. And also, you should have access to this on Edmodo as well as a paper copy that you should have received by now. If you haven't, make sure that you get a hold of me. Um, if you're having any difficulty with that, um, I will do my best to get a hold of you if I don't hear from you or if I haven't gotten any information back from you, just so you're aware. I am still making calls every day, so a lot of you are hearing from me each day. Um, so I'll continue to do that. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and get started. Uh, what we're going to be looking at right now is something that I sent home to you. You should have received this in the mail, or at least it's something that looks like it. If you didn't and you have received another assignment, that's okay. You can still do that assignment. A couple of you had started school late and you missed out on some of the work that we were doing in some of our classes. And I know in one of my English 8 classes, a student had missed the reading of the book, and we've already read half the book, and I gave out an assignment on the book, but I know some people didn't finish reading the book. So what I've done in light of that situation is give um, some assignments out that will cover each of my English classes for now. Okay. So this was just an assignment that I'm posting up. So everybody that is enrolled in class and was enrolled in class prior to spring break, you have access to Edmodo. And if you don't, there's that reason is on you. That I've been there, and if you haven't signed up, you can still do that, but um, let's take responsibility for this work. All right, so if you have been looking at the screen, you've had a chance to kind of read through what the assignment is. I want to draw your attention first to this keyword right here, which says inferences, and I'm going to be highlighting it right now. So inferences, and if you notice, it brings up a link. That link is actually just a pretty basic Google search of what the definition is, which is a conclusion reached on the basis of evidence and reasoning. Now, I wanted to show that because a lot of times when we don't understand a concept, all we have to do is just look up the word. In the past, we've used dictionaries. I know I had to use them very often. Um, in class, of course, we have dictionaries, but we also have the Chromebooks. So I always say, look up words you don't know. So if you're reading this information or you're reading a passage and you don't know what a word means, you should look it up. Now, if you don't have access to internet, I know if you don't have a dictionary, it's going to be difficult to do that. Um, but if you're watching this video right now, I'm pretty sure you have access to the internet. Now, uh, if you're looking at this on the phone and this is kind of difficult to see, um, you should have received it in the mail. And if you didn't, let me know and I could do whatever I can to get you this assignment as well. But what we are doing is looking at what inferences are. And just to further go over this idea, because I know I read that definition pretty quickly, it's kind of using the evidence of what you're seeing and making a conclusion about it. So if we're looking at this picture right here, and I ask you, what do you think is going on with this person? Now, if you respond to me and say, well, they fell down and bumped their head, that could be a possibility. But if we look a little bit closer, notice the eyes, the way they're turned up towards the sky. That might indicate what? Probably that this person that's right, tired. They're tired. So If we know that they're tired, and maybe they're tired for a particular reason, or maybe they're just worn down for some reason. Because I know sometimes when I get worn down for some reason, there might be another reason why. Even when I sleep and then I wake up and I still feel tired. And, we live here in the desert, but sometimes we need a blanket, even when it's nice out. And when that's happening, and then we have some green uh, receptacle in front of us, and we are holding a yellow phone, um, maybe we might be calling into work because we are, yes, and I'm sure you guessed it, we're probably sick. Now, I'm not making light of the situation or anything like that. I just pulled a picture up. It's pretty basic. Now, if you looked at this, you'd probably say, yeah, they're sick, they're tired, something like that. And you'd be making a really good inference. So the inference, so list any inferences about the author's background that can be found in the article. So let's go ahead and read. So this guy is Paul Ventura. The battle against coronavirus is personalizing the elderly, and that's a good thing. So now, one thing that we want to start thinking about when we read anything is, of course, when you make annotations and you look at a title, what does the title mean? So you might write down what you think the title means. Now, this is just for you. So if you have a piece of paper and you're holding this actual paper, you might pull out a pencil and just write. The battle against the coronavirus is personalizing the elderly. I look at this word right here, personalizing. Okay. Now that could that indicates something, and that's a good thing. So they're talking about personalizing is a good thing. So what this is kind of indicating to me in the title is that whatever this personalizing idea, if you personalize something, you individualize it. It's for one person. So if we're talking about something, the battle is personal, that's a good thing. Let's find out what they're talking about. Now you're also going to want to look at the rest of the things here. Of course, we have the title, so you'll list that and list any inferences. So this information you're going to find throughout the articles. Okay. Now I'm not going to answer these questions for you, but I want you to be thinking about them as you read. So describe the author's point of view and cite textual evidence to support those claims. So when we talk about citing textual evidence, I am talking about that cue, right? That cite specific evidence. I always say this. You have to use a quote, okay? So quote the information. Back up what you say using AQE. Answer the question, quote to back up what you just said, and then explain your answer. So the author has a point of view. We all have a point of view, okay? And we all think differently about a given topic, right? Let me say that again, okay? We all think differently about a given topic. So regarding this issue that's going on right now, and let's just name it, okay? So right now I'm going to highlight it, all right? And we have the coronavirus. People have different opinions about it, right? And we always talk about opinions. Now, opinions then can be one thing or another. Whatever the opinion might be, it's what an individual might think about it. So if we go back to yesterday's lesson and what I posted about different text structures and the rhetorical modes, um, and we go back to opinion, and we will find our way leading back to that whole idea of argumentation, right? As well as opinions. Opinion will allow us to, a lot of times, provide an argument. And what I would guess then is that if there's an argument that's about to take place right here. So now The fact that I sent you these articles, and I want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying right now, doesn't mean that I agree with any of them, okay? But I do want to present different information that's being put out there, okay? And I always talk about information being put out in different ways. So we as readers, we as learners, we as citizens, we as people, we are the ones that have to evaluate and analyze those opinions. So we have to think deeply about the information that we're reading. So in doing this task, what we're doing is thinking more deeply about a topic. Okay. In some ways that we do that is by reading information that you don't necessarily agree with and information that would support your opinion. That's where you get those citations from that help you prove what you're saying. So let's go ahead and start reading and make sure that you're identifying any words or phrases that are unfamiliar to you. So you might even find out a little bit more. Like I said, Google. So at the end, summarize central ideas. So all of this information right here, I want these answered individually. Okay. Now, does it say anywhere up here, you need to write 10 pages? You need to write 3 sentences? No, I just want enough information for you to get the point across. You know when you get your point across. My expectations are always to write and complete sentences, to answer, to quote, to explain, to do that properly as we've been doing in class. So make sure that you're doing that because that's your practice. Okay? So the battle for coronavirus against coronavirus is personalizing the elderly, and that's a good thing. So we see the date was March 13th, which was actually 11 days ago. So some things have changed since then. Since the earliest, so I'm starting right here at the top, read along. Since the earliest confusing days of the outbreak of the coronavirus, one thing has been abundantly clear. Those who are 65 and older face the greatest risk of suffering and succumbing to the virulent effects of the virus. As a result, health officials have taken extraordinary steps to try and minimize the elderly's exposure and vulnerability. Repeated warnings, both spoken and put in print, have been followed up by practical action steps. Hospitals, nursing homes, and other communities with seasoned citizens are isolating residents and patients and even prohibiting outside visitors from entering their facilities. So let's stop there for a moment and look at that paragraph. So, of course, as I always say, it's important to think through what you're looking at. So, as a result, health officials have taken extra steps, right? So, the warnings, but let's go down towards the bottom. Other communities with seasoned citizens are isolating residents. So they're putting them by themselves and patients and prohibiting outside visitors, so stopping outside people from entering their facilities. So this was 11 days ago, and efforts to keep things personalized is what they're referring to. Okay, let's keep reading now. This renewed emphasis on the concern for seniors is a bright spot in an otherwise dark season of growing concern. Sorry for moving too far down. The concentrated focus also stands in stark contrast to the way culture has all too often treated those in our population who are in the twilight of their lives. Rather than seeing them as expendable, forgettable, and even irrelevant, society is rallying to protect older Americans, and by doing so, acknowledging that every life at every age and stage is valuable and worthy of protection. Here, here, my own father, who lived to be nearly 86, used to joke that getting that old ain't for the faint of heart. I used to cringe when he'd tell me of impatient people yelling rude things at him in a parking lot as he took extra time with his car. Even some well meaning caregivers at the end of his life would sometimes talk to him in childish tones, something that bothered him and broke my heart little by little. I want to pause there for a moment. And I want you to consider what the author just did as well. So if we consider some of the rhetorical devices and rhetorical modes, and we go back to what the author is doing here. Broke my heart little by little. How does that make you feel? Now, for those of you with maybe someone a little bit older in your lives, maybe it made you feel a little bad. So remember what type of rhetorical device that might be as well. It also might tell you some information about the author. But I'm not giving away any information. I'm not giving away answers here. That's not what I do. Let's keep going. Like most elderly people, my dad seemed to die by degree. I knew he was growing more frail and fragile, but to me, he was always my strong and beloved father, the same man who tossed me like a rag doll into the waves when I was a young boy, or carried large pieces of lumber on his broad shoulders to and from his basement workshop as he made furniture on Saturday mornings in the summer. I'm reminded of a poignant poem that was in the possession of an old woman in the geriatric ward of a hospital. It's called See Me. It reads in part, the body is crumbled, grace and vigor depart. There is now a stone where once I had a heart, but inside this old carcass a young girl still dwells. And now and again my battered heart swells. I remember the joys, I remember the pain, and I'm loving and living life over again. I think of years, all too few, gone too fast, and accept the stark fact that nothing can last. So open your eyes, nurses, open and see, not a crabby old woman. Look closer, nurses. See me. Too many of us overlook our older citizens, reducing them to has-beens or relics from another era. It's a foolish thing to do. There are buckets of untapped wisdom inside of them, knowledge and experience culled and forged from the fires of their life's adventures, both good and bad. And all we need to do is ask them. My friend Kay Owens felt the call to begin ministering to the elderly after she saw how many of them were ignored in the same facility where she would regularly visit her aging parents. She discovered that across the country, nearly 85% of the elderly never receive a visit from anyone. Buoyed by prayers and a dream and convicted by God's call on her life, Kay launched Crossroads Ministries, a national nonprofit organization aimed at raising up teams of chaplains and volunteers to meet the spiritual and emotional needs of the elderly. I applaud her efforts. In times of crisis, Americans historically rise to the challenges at hand, appealing, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, to the better angels of our nature. I believe this is happening again all across our great country. Look out for the elderly in your neighborhoods offer to get groceries, medicine, or meet any number of other needs they may have as they remain homebound. America's seniors face a tough road ahead with COVID-19 pandemic, but thanks to renewed compassion and dedicated care of a culture who are recognizing the elderly's inherent dignity and worth, they stand a fighting chance to survive this outbreak and deepen their contribution to the country. So, we've now had a look at Paul Batura's article on Fox News, published on March 13th, 2020. The battle against the coronavirus is personalizing the elderly, and that's a good thing. Now, you've read it with me, and you had a chance to go through it once. Now, it's always good to read it once, but make sure that you go back, look through, go through the information that I'm having you, answer your questions using text evidence, okay? Make sure you look up any words you don't know, and annotate the document. Annotate it for yourself, okay? This will help you with understanding for what the intended purpose of this assignment is. So thank you again for caring about your education, and I will see you tomorrow. This is Mr. Pigeon signing out.